Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality in a way that is extremely empowering. Speaking of exploring powerful perspectives, I'm super excited to announce the release of my very first book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. If you're ready to alchemize the circumstances in your life so that your abundance expands to an entirely new level in 2021, head over to goldenkey.gift to download the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD. All right, all you positive heads, on this week's Pow Wow episode, I am super excited to have Shaman Durek here with me on the show. He is a third-generational shaman who hosts the popular podcast Ancient Wisdom Today, where he plays the stellar role of a loving guide and bridge between the spiritual and physical planes. Super excited. Hello, Shaman. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Brandon.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. You know, I've been noticing your show pop up on my radar for many months now. And it's funny because I even talked to my booking manager, Erica, about getting in touch with you to book you a while back. And it didn't happen, whatever happened at the time. And then our mutual friend, Phil Good, who was recently on both of our shows, he reached out and connected us and was like, you two have to connect. And I was like, yes, we do. I've been thinking this. I've been feeling this. So it's wonderful to have it manifest. And I want to start with the same. I have a very predictable opening question and ending question, as my listeners know. And the opening question is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, what's your passion? You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
My passion is to put the power back in people's hands so that they don't become spiritually codependent upon a system that is not meant to lift them in their evolution.
Love that. Love that. And we've got some floors to go there, but you are concise and on it. So let's delve into how you go about that. And I think a really good place to always start is to get some context, because I mean, just right off the bat, a third generational shaman, I have a feeling your story is a little different than my story growing up in, a very Christian household and going to a Christian college and ultimately getting kicked out of. But that's a different story. That's my story. I want to hear about your story and how you ended up in the role that you're playing that is, actually expanding in so many ways that we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. So my grandmother is a medicine woman from the Mbutu and Yoruba tribe in Ghana. And she chose me when I was 5 years old to be her successor, because I exuded there's certain gifts that you would see when someone is coming to become a shaman, and I exuded those gifts. And so I started training. My dad didn't let me start training in our family shamanism from our tribe until 11 years old. So because he wanted me to have just a moment of breath, because he grew up with it in Africa, and then they ended up moving from Africa and then to New Orleans, and then my grandmother came back over to be with the family and then would go back to Africa. And so my father was more about, give the boy a chance to just be a kid and so forth before he gets thrown into this really intense world that's going to really flip his world upside down. And, it's funny because, I spoke to my father last year before he passed away, and he was like, I'm really glad that I gave you that space. because you've become so well-rounded as a shaman in our family, where, you know, it's given me such an insight on humanity. But so I started training when I was 11 years old with my elders. And then in shamanism, you get trained by your elders and you get trained by spirits. So spirits will come and visit you to see if you're ready to take on some of the tasks that they have for you. And then you share it with your elders, and then they help you cultivate it and build your skills and build your gifts, and, you know, and really fine tune your abilities. And then I took my first person that I worked with at age 14, and I started, you know, and also the other thing too, is I left school after elementary school. So I didn't go, I wasn't in the institution of school. And the reason for that is because in shamanism, you cannot be inundated with thoughts that are programmed like in a way that is like, you know, very programmed to control your mind, to make you believe that you have to do something in order to get something, in order to have something. So you're available to the spirits. And so I started working with people at age 14. I say change my word from work to love. I started loving in people at age 14, 15. And then I took my rites of passage when I was about 27, which is the final test that shamans have to take to prove that they have learned everything that they needed to learn and that they're ready to step into that role. So mine's was letting the spirits create something in my life that would allow me to take that test. And mine's was, I ended up dying with a 10.6 potassium. I lost my kidneys. I suffocated to death, and all my organs shut down one by one. I flatlined. Wow. And I went to the other side, and I got to meet all the different elders of all the different tribes. And I got to see friends, and I got to see family, and I got to turn myself into sound waves and bounce off of each other. And I got to swim, and I got to fly, and I got to eat. And it was just amazing, amazing experience. And also very different too, because my father, when I was growing up, he wanted me not to just study shamanism. He also wanted me to study religion, because he always said to me, like, if you don't know religion, you're not going to be able to help so many other people on the planet. So I very much got into, you know, Seventh-day Adventist and Christianity. And I started really understanding, like, reading the Bible, reading the books of Acts, reading Corinthians, reading pretty much everything. And, you know, and really diving deep into the church. And really, so I was doing both at the same time. I felt like a bit of a hypocrite, but at the same time, I wasn't looking at it in that way, because I was looking at it more in the way
research,
of, like I want to understand what this is and really dive into it. So there was a point within my shamanism where I walked away from shamanism and became a reborn again Christian to experience, going on Polk Street and helping and evangelizing people. And I worked in a boys' home that was all Christian boys, and really helping get homeless people off the street and share the Bible with them and do all of these things. And that really helped me to really understand the depths of, what it is. And what I found from that was the beauty and the teachings of Jesus. What I got rid of was the other stuff, because the other side, shamanism, the way we understand God is not from this idea of, good versus bad, or this idea like there's a Santa Claus theory of God where it's like, okay, if you do good, you get rewarded. And if you don't, you get a lump of coal. So in shamanism, the way we're taught as kids is they take us into nature. And they say, if you want to know God, stay here until you find God. And we end up staying there sometimes 2-3 days. And then we find God by acknowledging that we see the essence of life in the trees and the flowers and creation. And when we actually look at the flower, we're not just looking at a flower, we're looking at life. And when we look in between that life, we see life and death. And between that life and death, we see this energy that creates, and it keeps creating, and it never stops. And that's what we associate God as, is this infinite energy that just keeps creating. And so we see that in ourselves, and we see that in you, and we see that in everything. And so we understand that we are conscious beings on earth. However, everything we say out of our mouth and everything we react to and everything we think is being created by that energy. And that's the reason why the world is the way it is because human beings don't think for themselves. They think against themselves. And so a lot of the teachings in shamanism is about sociology, anthropology, physiology, kinesiology, pathology. We understand the dynamics of the mind structure, the brain, the body. So we do bone reading, we do blood reading, we do you. We read your pulse, we read your sound tones, we read the way you walk. I mean, there's all these different things. So it's not just ayahuasca or iboga or morning glory. You know, a lot of times the people in the Western world has taken shamanism and bastardized it into this kind of like, you know, this kind of like, let's go get medicine.
Pop culture thing.
Yeah, pop culture, like banging drums and burning sage sticks and, you know, or burning Palo Santo. That's not what shamanism is about. Shamanism is about creating community of leaders to lead the message of love forward on planet Earth and to lift the veil of illusion into love so that we can all live and prosper and adapt on planet Earth together in a very harmonious way, both with nature, with animals, and with ourselves in self-preservation. And that's really what it's about.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I think back to, of course, this is almost to episode 800 of this podcast. And my, like, episode 6, looking back right now, is a good friend of mine, Pablo Miller, who has been leading, speaking of plant medicines, he's been leading ayahuasca journeys and iboga journey for 25 years. And, you know, he's a guy here from the States, white guy from the States who studied, under all kinds of shamans in different places around the world. And the way he puts it, he's like, I never refer to myself as a shaman because, you know, and a lot of people do in the sort of the pop culture kind of almost fad like thing that is happening with plant medicines now, which there's probably a mixed bag of sort of, you know, in some ways it's really, really great. And in others, like you said, it's being bastardized. But what I loved about him is he was like, you know, and the way he explained it to me was, you have to be born into a lineage. He's like, even though I've been doing this kind of work and I've studied under some of the greats and I respect these plant medicines greatly and, you know, all these things. He's like, I'll never refer to myself as a shaman like so many others do once they start, you know, delving out plant medicines, because it's like a lineage thing, you know? And so I think that's really, really interesting, that I think there's a certain energy that really is emanating from you and the fact that you're the real deal, right? And I love that. It's amazing.
Well, you know, the thing is too, and this is like a lot of people have misconceptions about shamanism, is that, you know, there are a lot of people who are ayahuascaderos, right? And they're trained in understanding the medicine, working with the medicine, but that doesn't constitute them being shamans. A shaman is someone who understands they have certain types of powers. You have to first of all, just to be a shaman, you have to really devote your whole life to the spirits, and whatever the spirits will do to you, you have to accept it because it's all there to strengthen you, to be more humble, to have more humility, and to love people without restraints. It's like, it's loving people where they are without trying to indoctrinate them or put some kind of belief system on them. It's just serving them. It's like, how do you serve someone in the best way? You love them unconditionally and you accept where they're at in their sojourn. And what happens is a lot of times I'll meet people like in different parts of the world. They'll say, oh, I'm a shaman. You know, I studied in ayahuascadero for like 15 years. And I said, yeah, but do you know about the anatomy? Do you know how to deal with possession? Do you know how to deal when someone is having, going into, anaphylactic shock? Do you know how to deal with the things that shamans are trained to deal with? Or do you just know how to deal with someone like interpreting their journey with the medicine and being able to prepare the medicine in a sacred way? And he's like, yes. I said, then you're an ayahuascadero. You're not a shaman. They're very different. Right. And the other thing is, you don't have to be born in a lineage. That's not true. The spirits on the other side, they know that a lot of the indigenous lineages are dying out, are not even keeping to their traditions because of the fact that things have become modernized. And a lot of shamans and a lot of cultures are afraid of the Western world. And shamanism is about creating an awareness of tribal culture through the understanding of adaptation as humans experience sociology and their ability to live on planet Earth. So if you are living in a tribe and your tribe has decided decided that the Western world is too much to handle, a lot of shamans have become very shut down. Like I've met a lot of shamans who are like, how can you share your family's lineage with the Westerners when all they're going to do is like use it just so they can get an experience instead of really dive deep in the devotional aspect of how do I make myself as a human being a superhuman? Like, how do I turn myself into a person who has powers, who can speak to the ancestors, who can have a connection with nature, have a really synthesis and sensorium with life? And a lot of shamans have turned away from the Western world and just allow people to come in to do the medicines and hope that they'll figure it out. And when I say hope, I'm going to use the word hope because it's a two-way road. It means yes or no. They don't know if the person is really going to take the medicine and actually have a full understanding that it's not the medicine that makes you awake. It's you who's willing to be awake, and then you go away from the medicine. The medicine is just what it is. It's medicine.
Tool.
But it's a tool, right? But once it runs through your body, after it runs through your body, it's out. But in shamanism, if you study shamanism from the root, which is what I teach my students and what I teach people, when you study it from the root, you actually develop real powers. Like a woman came yesterday, and she drove all the way from Arizona to come train with me, and I taught her how to connect with the ancestors. She could speak now to her ancestors. She was able to draw electricity in her body and harness it through her whole entire system and change her blood pressure, change how her brain is opening up synapses and neural pathways. So a lot of the stuff that, and I'm also working with Dave Asprey. I've been teaching him and his whole bulletproof world how to be able to, I call it spirit hacking, which I changed it into giving people an understanding of how to regulate their own bodies, how to, change synthesis in your body to get rid of pain for kids who have cancer. These types of things is a part of shamanism. And so when you're chosen by spirit, my love, you could be a person living in Nebraska and all of a sudden spirits are visiting you as a child and you're not afraid of them and you're actually communicating with them, and you realize that these spirits are there to strengthen your spiritual gifts, to give you spiritual immunity so that you're able to interact with them in the world of the unknown. You are chosen to be a shaman. That's what we look for. It doesn't mean you have to be in a tribe, because tribes choose you from the other side. You could be a kid in Nebraska, and an Inuit tribe elder on the other side of the veil has chosen you to be the next shaman, and you're born in Nebraska. So your friend has a little bit of that understanding, but not the full concept of how the spirit world is choosing shamans. So yeah, a lot of people can. But again, it's not like this, like, I'm just going to bang drums and put sage smoke over you and rub an egg on you and then we're done. It's literally, it goes a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, a lot of it more than that. So what about someone who wants to, who wants to have those sorts of experiences? Like, can someone, you basically are saying, okay, you're being chosen from the other side in a sense. But can someone with their own, free will say, okay, I want to choose. I'm calling this in. I'm willing to do what it takes. Have you heard of this sort of thing happening?
Absolutely. So there are people who do want to step into that path, but it's funny because a lot of times what's happening right now, I call it trend sheeping. It's a word I came up with that I find very interesting in pop culture, is that people want to get involved. Did you say
trend sheeping?
Trend sheeping, like trend sheeping.
Okay, right. Okay.
Yeah, because what it is that because, I was just talking to this woman the other day, and she's like, I remember meeting you 16 years ago, and you were talking about shamanism to me and explaining to me about your family and so forth. She goes, and nobody was interested in shamanism whatsoever. I remember people, when I was tell people, that I was a shaman, it was like this long drawn out conversation of having to explain to them. And then the first thing they would go to in their mind is, oh, do you do black magic? Oh, do you do voodoo? Right. Oh, do you do this? Right. And I'm like, no. So I just started telling people I'm a healer until I was like, and my ancestors was like, just wait till people are comfortable with it. And then a Lakota elder said to me, no, just call yourself Shaman Durek. Put the name shaman, because you live in the Western world where people don't have respect for things unless there's some form of understanding. So you put a title on it. So I started calling myself Shaman Durek. But the thing is, that's how my name became Shaman Durek. But the thing is that when you're dealing with people who say, I just want to be a shaman, you have to understand that being a shaman isn't just like this walk in the park and it's like, it's all sunny and it's all rosy and it's all like this beautiful thing. It becomes that when you get over learning how to use your powers. But if you choose to be a shaman, you're going to have a lot of things happen to you that are going to throw you curveballs left and right to test your will, to test your perception, to test your ability to handle confrontation at high levels, you know, to test your ability to have to be able to love beyond labels, love beyond measures of fear, love beyond measures of violence, love beyond anything that could ever be thrown at you from the Matrix. Because when you're a shaman, you're literally a Morpheus. You're literally learning how to decode the Matrix and navigate yourself to find the people in the Matrix who are willing to wake up and step into their power of leadership and turn on their powers and then begin to start decoding and like defying the Matrix, which is this world that was created from the underworld spirits that have constructed this world through the minds of weak people who don't question their reality but accept what they're being told. And so the beings in the underworld, they just want to maintain the construct of their world. And the way that they maintain the darkness is that they need something to keep making fear and something that keeps reacting into fear. And that's us on planet Earth. And so they infiltrated the synapses of different people who don't question their reality, but do exactly as they're told. So they get voices in their head that tells them to do certain things. And instead of saying, hey, this isn't coming from love. Well, who are you? Where are you coming from? This isn't me. What is this voice that I'm hearing in my head? They just go and do it all willy-nilly. And they don't realize that what it's actually creating is they're building an infrastructure for the underworld beings to keep us in this box of control and subjugation with an ounce of make-believe freedom, which is because you can take a trip to Maui. It's basically throwing a dog a bone, you know? And what I've come to do on Earth is to help people to see that they're inside of a matrix. And then how do you navigate this matrix? And so if someone wants to be a shaman, I say, just so you know, it's not just like you're going and helping people. You're literally facing off with darkness.
In learning how to transmute that darkness ultimately, right? I mean, would you say that all of these shadows are just aspects of self that are crying out for healing?
That's what they are. So every being in the underworld, right, are spirits that had bodies at one time. And when they died, what happens when you die? There's no judgment from God. It's just simply you get to see everything that you did, and you get to see it with no blinders on. And then you have a choice you have to be able to let go of it all and go into the light. But if a spirit has murdered someone and killed themselves and they can't accept it, they weren't at peace with it and for real, they just did it, but they didn't really consider it. Or let's say, for instance, they were in a war and they end up killing a lot of people because they were a soldier. It could be a multiple of things. You know, it doesn't just mean it's someone who kills someone. It can mean other things. It's any soul that can't let go of their earth attachment goes to the underworld. And there's different levels of the underworld. So what they do is they look for a host that has something similar to what they were dealing with internal, that when the darkness got into them and made them go into these spheres, they look for someone who's a host on planet Earth who has that same energy, and they tap in with their into their system, into their operating system, and start telling their story to that person. But what happens with human beings, because human beings haven't studied shamanism, they don't understand that the voices they hear in their head is not them. Any voice in your head that is not love is not you. It's a spirit telling its story to you, asking you to bring it to the light. And what most people do is they just act out these stories. And that's the reason why you have the calamity and the discord that you see on Earth, that we are here to bring love to.
Yeah. Wow. You know, I was always kind of suspect of the idea of possession and you know, that sort of thing. Having never had any sort of interaction with what I feel like is a multidimensional being, either negative or positive, like that's very, very tangible, right? Myself. So the idea of possession to me was always sort of, I don't know about this, but maybe, I don't know, 9 years ago, my son's mother went through this transformation where she was always a little, you know, different, a little crazy, not in a really dark way. And it was like she started drinking alcohol, which you hear the idea of spirits, you know, like it's opening yourself up. She started drinking more alcohol and it became like a new person, like in a very dark, like the closest thing to a possessed person I've ever seen. It's like if you were to talk to her, you know, her last name is Calais, and it's like almost like I feel like the embodiment of the goddess Kali, the goddess of destruction. Like she's literally, if you were to talk to her, it's like this spiritual narcissism. I am the goddess of this world, and these are all my minions, and you all die when I move back into the Vatican. And it's just very out there, but it's like it's, you know, I remember she even posted a YouTube video years ago burning baby dolls, and it was just like, I'm looking at a fully possessed soul. And you know, because I've seen the transformation into this new being, and it's a very interesting, you know, we have a child together, and he's like the most balanced soul ever, and it's like here I am on this far end of one spectrum, she's on the far, it's like we're yin and yang, you know, light and darkness. And it's you know, she's not really in our lives day to day. You can't be around her. The energy is so intense and kind of frightening and dark and chaotic. Yeah, I mean, that's the first time I've ever said, okay, I've kind of witnessed this for myself, and it was a frightening thing to watch happen to someone.
When you're dealing with something like that, you're dealing with what we call a middle plane spirit. A middle plane spirit are spirits that are trapped in what are called the shades. And the shades are like witches, people who used the magic so many times or did so many things with their power that they're in the underworld, but they're in this part called the shades. They need someone to believe in them on the earth plane. So that they can gain power through them. And the more and more that person gives himself over. And you said she's doing spirits, which is in alcohol, which is like alchemy, which was created in the dark ages to be able to separate someone from their body so that a spirit can inhabit them, so they would see what the spirit would do and give that person a break to be able to let all their inhibitions out and let everything inside out. So that spirit was actually writing them. And for her, it looks like, you know, just off the bat, that there is some power struggle going on inside of her about her value, her worth, and her ability to acknowledge herself as a powerful person and what it means to bring that power into the world in the way that actually serves for the greater good. So there's this aspect of the spirit coming in and saying, hey, you don't have that power. I do, but it's not going to be able to be given to you until you continue to keep embodying me into your body. And that's a very dangerous type of spirit to have, you know, making deals with you, because I mean, let's just face it. I mean, when you're dealing, there is this one spirit called Levana, which it sounds like Levana, the way you're describing it. Levana is a spirit that possesses people who need to feel that they need power over people. So anytime they need to have like a feeling of having dominions or any kind of like, you know, servitude, and they need to have that. Levana was a spirit that existed in a dimension where it was all about, you know, enslaving people and like, you know, destroying them when she wanted to. So it sounds to me, just the way you're talking, the moment you said that, immediately my guys were like, it's Levana playing out through her. And Levana is a tricky one because Levana likes to laugh a lot when you say something, and she'll look at you with these strange eyes. She does a lot of like creepy
cackling.
Yeah,
she does a lot of creepy laughing.
Yeah, so you'll know it's Levana because Levana has certain behaviors that take over people's bodies. So I'll give you some of them. So for instance, Levana will always talk about dominions and people under them, and they need to serve her. And that if she's not able to be here on earth, that people will perish. That's one, the Levana statements. Levana cackles and laughs like a hysterical, weird laugh, and then speaks like and you have no idea what I can do. That's a Levana. Okay. Levana is the type of person who will like do very dramatic things, like say like very dramatic things. Like if I wanted to, I could take you out of your body, or I could do this to you, or I could do that to you. You better realize what type of power you're dealing with here, and give you these weird eyes and stare at you with these eyes. And then all of a sudden the eyes go away. That's Levana. And Levana will do things where she'll take her hair. If you have hair, she'll take her hair and like mess it up and do like weird, like things where, you know, she might even act like a little girl all of a sudden and then become this kind of like witchy sound in her voice. That's Lavana. So all of those things, you know, in shamanism, we get trained in as a kid to understand different types of spirits or ETs or like, you know, like for instance, like reptilians or entities, things like that, and how to deal with them and where and what they're coming from. Lavana is about power. So she looks for power through humans so she can feed herself in her dimension. And so every time a human follows a task that she sets them to do, either telling someone how powerful she is, or you said burning Barbie dolls, all this kind of weird writing things and sending you weird letters, anything that is to get you to react. Yeah, to get you to react, that's a Lavana spirit. And that means the only way you can get Lavana out is in a bath of water. You can't get Lavana out unless she's submerged in water. And you have to submerge her in water to pull Lavana out of her body.
Wow. That was my next question. Is there anything that can be done? Because it's really the saddest thing. You know, I have a mother who is like the most stereotypical, nurturing, loving mother a person could have. And then, you know, for my son, it's like, I can't imagine that being my mom. It's almost worse than her dying, right? To watch her go from, you know, kind of a little bit crazy, but cool at times too, you know, his mom, to, oh my God, who's this possessed human who I can't even be around because she's so intense and scary? Like, you know, that's a hard thing for to watch your child have to experience. And of course, he's very wise and very mature, old soul. And so he gets it and knows that she's sick and, you know, all those things. But I've often wondered, is there any hope for someone who's just so far gone? You know, is there any path or way to sort of, and of course, if you talk to her, you don't know anything. She knows everything and you're just a fool. So it's not like she can even admit there's a problem, right? It's like she's not even aware.
Yeah, because that's what Lavana does. But the thing is, yeah, you can disempower Lavana. And the other thing too, when it comes to your child, the best thing to do is to tell your child that you don't have to take this on. Mom is going to fix herself, or she's going to, because what children have, I wrote an article about it in Goop magazine, which was about children who parents think that children are just interacting with them. But what children do is they take on, they're empathic. So they pull the pain out of you into their body so they can start figuring out how to help you. So the first thing you have to do is safeguard your child by saying you don't have to take on this energy. Message.
I thank you for that message, because honestly, that's been something that is a concern for me. But, you know, it's something that I've obviously considered, like, hey, he comes from her, but he also comes from me. And thank goodness he's he's a lot like me. But there is that part of him where he's like, I'm not scared of the darkness. I'm not like, he always like will kind of joke like, oh, Dad, you're like such like the light bearer. Like you're just all light. And he's like, you know, I'm not scared of it. I'm not. And it's almost like he's intrigued by the darkness a little bit, even though he's all heart and all love and the sweetest human ever. You know, and that's concerned me a little bit, that like, dude, I don't want you to lean into that. You know what I mean? And so I really value that message that you shared right there, because I'm going to have him listen to this for sure.
Yeah. And then also too, getting aquamarine. Aquamarine protects people from a Lavana spirit. So if you use aquamarine, protects people from Lavana spirit. The other thing, the way you disempower Lavana is when Lavana is speaking to you from your woman's mouth to you. What you simply turn and say to Lavana, you say to her, the sand is dry and the night is cold. You have no power here, Lavana. Remember this.
Wow, the sand is dry and the night is cold.
And you have no power here.
Wow, okay.
No. It really takes her power away. And it's, you know, there's certain things you can say to different spirits that like immediately take their power away. And it's really funny because I remember when I was growing up as a kid, there was this character called Rumpelstiltskin, and you have to like understand, there were certain things you had to do to take his power away. Or there's certain things where it's actually true. There are certain things that take spirits' power away in the physical world. And Lavana, one of the things that takes her power away is when you tell her the sand is dry and the night is cold, you have no power. Your power is weakened here, Lavana. You have no power here. Wow. It's so funny that you try to have power here in our world. That's, you know, it's like, it's a joke. Lavana cannot stand when you actually make that statement, because what you're doing to her is you're actually weakening her power into this world.
Wow.
Her two weaknesses is cold. So cold nights and the dryness of the sand, like desert sand, dryness. It's her weakness. Wow. So yeah, it's really interesting. And
how and when were you exposed to this info? Like, did this all come from spirit to you? Always.
Yeah. So when you're training as a shaman, because I'm a spirit shaman, so let's just kind of understand there's different types of shamans out there, right? So if you go to Bali, you're working with a water shaman. So they do sacred symbols that they spin and they put inside the water with flowers, and they dump it on you, and it can make you feel electricity, or some people will throw up, or some people will shake, or some people will just have this complete enlightening that comes over them. And then there's like shamans who work with root medicines, and there's shamans who work, you know, with different plant medicines, and there's shamans who work with fire. And like, for instance, like if you go to Mongolia, for instance, you have the yellow and red shamans, and then the yellow shamans work strictly with mushrooms, whereas the red shamans don't at all. They're like me, they're spirit shamans, so they don't put anything in their body. They're purists. And so spirit shamanism, if you're a plant medicine shamanism, you're learning about plants, you're learning about, you know, understanding of plants, how they operate. So you're learning how to commune with the plants, find out what they do without having someone tell you. You're learning about how to enter synthesis into the plant, talk to the plant and find out if it's poisonous, if it's beneficial, what does it do, how does it work, how do you make it, and so forth and so on. How do you bring it into your body, or if you need to bring it into your body, or just use it as a salve. Whereas in spirit shamanism, our training starts about learning about all the different spirits that live in the spirit world. And let me tell you, it's like I have like a catalog book in my consciousness of all the different spirits that are out there and how they operate, what are their weaknesses. Like if someone was to do voodoo against someone, like left-handed voodoo, not voodoo from the place of like protection and loving someone, but left-handed voodoo, which is used to take something from you so that you become a slave to whatever dark spirits they're answering to, so they don't have it done to them. So they can actually like throw off because everything that you do in magic, it belongs to you. But if you create like certain spirit pots, and like a lot of times people who do black magic, they'll do that. They get you like another person to owe them something, and then they take a hair or a nail or something of yours, create a spirit pot. When they own you until you fulfill your debt with them. And if they don't, they sell you off to a spirit that can torment you. And gypsies do that. A lot of people, left-handed voodoo do that. People in black magic do that. Eventually that energy is going to come back to them, but they keep prolonging it by keeping, you going, the energy going to someone else. It's really interesting. So in spirit shamanism, we're taught the dark arts for 15 years of our training, how to protect people, how to tell them how to maneuver spirits out of their home. If it's a poltergeist, if the home is being haunted, is it a spirit that can touch you and poke you at night in your bed? Is it a spirit that creates paralysis when you're sleeping? How do you get out of these things? What if your kid is having nightmares at night because there's a spirit in the room? How do you get your child to be strong enough to face that spirit? What kind of things do you do? What kind of words do you say? So these are things that spirit shamans we learn. So we have like this huge library of spirits, and I have access to certain realms of information that gives me knowledge about spirits. Like it's like really funny. I play this thing called Dungeons and Dragons with friends, and then you know your weaknesses.
My
and your
son
attributes.
Speaking to my son, he absolutely loves Dungeons and Dragons. It's like his new favorite thing in the last year.
So do I. And the thing is, I always find it funny is because when I play like video games, like always what people will ask me in the media, like, oh, so what do you do, shaman, on your downtime? I'm like, I play video games. And they're like, what? Yeah. They think I'm going to be meditating under a tree or something. It's just, come on, this
so
world.
Great.
It's too much, it's just too much. I build forts, I play with my action figures, and I play video games. Go figure.
So good.
But the funny thing is that like when I play these video games, I laugh and my friend's like, what's so funny? And I was like, because when you choose these characters, you can find out the weaknesses of these things that you're after. It's the same thing in shamanism. We have this download of information of what makes a spirit weak. How do you break a possession? What kind of things do you need to do to get things out of the way, And a lot of my friends who do a lot of script writing, who write for like all these big shows, that are all like, American Horror Story and all these different things, they sit with me on tables and ask me tons of questions about the spirit world so they can add it into their TV shows. And it's really funny because a lot of times people don't know that spirit shamans were killed off during a lot of the Christian crusades, and a lot of the religious figures on the world killed off a lot of the spirit shamans, including Saint Constantine, who was like just determined to get rid of spirit shamans, because we have powers and abilities that can be shown to people and show them how to access it so quickly that it defies what they want to program people with and put them into subjugation. It's really interesting.
Right. Yeah, fascinating. All right, well, now seems like a good moment to take a quick minute to tell those of you who aren't familiar a bit about our sponsor, Gaia. I've been a big fan of Gaia for many years now, which is why they're the only content provider I've ever reached out to in regards to potentially supporting this podcast. So, needless to say, I'm very excited they're now supporting the show. Gaia truly is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web. They have an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. Just to give you an example, on the show Missing Links, the incredible researcher Greg Braden explores all the biggest questions concerning who we are, where we come from, where we're going, by connecting the missing links between science and spirituality to complete our understanding of humanity's history and to better understand the interconnectedness of all things. Awesome, right? And that's just one example. As you guys constantly hear me say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to go deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. So, question, when you are interacting with someone in your day-to-day life, are you also accessing their spirit guides, for example?
Yes,
do they
course.
come to you or okay, so they're always sort of there, or you have to like seek out connection, or is it just you're here, there. But I see all your guides so like as you're talking to me, like you're aware of my guides in this moment?
Of course.
Interesting. Very, very interesting.
And also you have writings that come up on the wall. So like if I'm in a room and I'm talking to someone, the walls will start filling up with letters and words.
Wow.
And I start reading them if I choose to read them. If I don't choose to read them, then they just disappear eventually. And then more writing comes up. So then like I'll be sitting like, for instance, like a friend of mine was going on this date that she met some person on a dating site. And all of a sudden the word came up on the wall. This guy is not finished with his relationship. It's just wasting her time. It's not necessary for her to go. It's not in alignment. And then I told her and she went, and then she found out that the guy was not finished with his old relationship. And she's like, oh my God, you're right. Like, why didn't I listen to you? Or like, for instance, I had a friend who was going off the grid, and it said to me, all of a sudden the room started filling up with walls that said death is waiting for him. So I was like, you can't go on this trip. You're going to die. And he would be like, what are you talking about, Durek? I said, you're going to die. You can't go on this trip. And he's like, how? And I was like, wait, does anyone have tarot cards around here? So I use different forms of divination if I want to. I don't need to, but sometimes I do it for my friends so they can actually see something show up. So they can be like, oh, wow. So I threw down the tarot cards, and the Chariot card came and the Death card. And he goes, what does that mean? I said, well, if you were looking at it from literal sense, it means that you're going to die, and that the Chariot is like new journeys, new openings, new beginnings. So you're going on this journey. But literally what it means now, based on what I'm talking to you about, is that you're going to go on a journey of death. And he still went on the trip after I told all my friends, and I even warned two of my friends that if you go with him, your life is going to be changed forever. And I told him, okay. He's like, what's going to happen if I die? How's it going to happen? And I said, okay. And all of a sudden the words came off, told him, it said on the word, don't eat from nature. Don't eat from nature. Don't eat from nature. Death is waiting for you. So the words just show up. And so I said, don't eat from nature. And what did he do? He went up to Humboldt Mountains, and him and his girlfriend, Mitzi, and my friend Mike and my friend Robin, they all decided to go walk, get off the grid, get away from computers, get away from technology, the whole bit, and go live in nature. And I told them, before you go, don't go up there, and make sure you have food and you have things that you can nourish yourself with, because I know you guys, you're going to roll a joint, you're going to smoke, and you're going to get cotton mouth. You're going to wake up in the morning, you're going to be hungry. You're not going to hike back hours back to get food and get in the car where you left it. You're going to want to look for food, and that's when you're going to die. And sure enough, they didn't listen, and Mitzi and Stefan died. And I get things like that all the time, like even when I'm in meetings with people, I look at them and I'm like, like I'll see words on the wall. He just wants to use you for this TV show so he can make money, and he wants to make a joke of you. And I'm like, I'm sorry, this meeting is over.
Wow. That's intense, man. So he just your friends ended up eating something out of nature. Did you ever hear what it was, that they just got something that was like poisonous that they thought was edible?
Yeah, it was Waterhemlock, which was used to assassinate Queen Elizabeth. You can rub it on clothes, and just by getting it on your skin, if you sweat, it seeps into your epidermis, into your pores. And once it gets into your epidermis, the poison goes into your syntax nerves and then goes to your whole neurological system, and you start bleeding out. It's really crazy. But they ate a size of a soup bowl, which is interesting because when I was talking to my friends, I said, they were the friends of mine who I told not to go have been disturbed ever since, and still to this day. And I told them, before they left, I said, you're going to watch them die the most horrible death, because they're going to eat more than they're supposed to. And it's going to be something that's going to be so horrific. It's going to change your life. You should not go on this trip. And one of my buddies, just a month ago, I saw him because I told him that if he goes and this happens, he's going to end up in prison for, in his life. And he's going to have tattoos all over his face and all this kind of stuff. And sure enough, his name is Mike Swaggart. He's a wonderful guy. He's a wonderful kid, but he didn't listen to me. And because he watched his friend die, he freaked out and was at home, and he had a psychotic breakdown, decided to get into drugs, and then went and robbed the bank with a water gun, and then got sent to prison. And then to survive, he got pulled in by the skinheads and he had tattoos of swastikas and all this stuff all over his body.
Wow.
And I saw him recently. He was out, but now he's back in because he messed up parole. And he said to me, he started crying to me, and I was in his hotel room with his new girlfriend, and his motel room. And I came to visit him, and he goes, I wish I would have listened to you back then. He goes, but when you talk, you say things sometimes, and we as kids, we're all like, God, is this really going to happen? Or is this just Durek being dramatic? And, he's like, I wish I would have listened, because everything you said happened. And I said, that's okay, sweetheart. And he cried in my arms. I held him, and we're now pen pals. I send him letters to prison, and, it's unfortunate. And the thing is I tell my friends all the time, I see words pop up. It says, don't do that. I tell them, don't do it. They do it. And that's I can only be the harbinger for so long,
Right.
And because in my past life, I was Pythia, Oracle of Delphi. So I have very strong Delphi, Oracle roots in me, not to mention the Egyptian roots of being in my life, and also being a concubine, sex slave who was constantly getting me pregnant from the Chinese dynasty, from the emperor. I have all of these signals inside of me that are very alive and very present. And so I don't hold back from people when I see them.
Wow.
If it's necessary. I don't just go out and give unsolicited information.
Sure.
However, one time I was at a restaurant and a friend gave me that's why I'm a purist, because I was drinking a little sip of wine and I slid underneath the table and started telling everyone in the restaurant, I wanted this guy, and I was like, he's cheating on you. And I started laughing because I was so drunk, because I have such a pure body. A little sip of alcohol makes me drunk. And I was like, my friends were like, well, we'll never do that again.
Yeah. Lesson learned. Wow. That's super, super and fascinating and intense.
Normal for me.
Right. That's what I was about to say. It seems like, and I guess a lifetime of sort of integrating this, this life for you has made it so, like anything, you expand to sort of be able to navigate it, and it's not, doesn't seem like it's that big of a thing now.
Well, I mean, when you have, that's the reason why shamans have a rites of passage. Like, I died in my rites of passage, but when I came back, I was in a wheelchair for 2 years. Doctors told me I was never going to walk again, never talk again, that I was going to be a vegetable. I had lost my kidneys, my liver had failed, my lungs had collapsed, and I had brain damage. And I had to put my body back together. So I spent 10 years on dialysis. That when you are taking that rites of passage, you do it with such reverence, such devotion, because you know that every pain you're going through, everything you're going through are diamonds and gems and rubies to give to the world and share with people. So, that's
make your mess your message, right?
Yeah. You don't go into this like, woe is me, or the world sucks, or life is horrible. Oh, boo hoo. No, you go into, I'm going to embrace every experience as a way to give back to the people. And that's and that's kind of like, so for me, it's a part of my normal. But what I do is I don't always, well, as like last night I was at a friend's house in Venice, and, this girl was asking me some questions. I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. I'll support you and help you, but also to me, it's not about putting myself in a guru status or putting myself above people. And it's about me being with the people and showing them that they have this inside of them as well, and showing them how to access that.
That was really my next question is, someone like myself, it's like, I feel so tapped into sort of an understanding of the ultimate nature of reality and how to help people to sift and shift perspectives until love emerges. Like what I refer to that as like spiritual alchemy, just keep sifting and shifting perspectives till you are in alignment with higher self, and love is the underlying message there and perspective to overlay everything with. That being said, as I mentioned earlier, I haven't ever had any sort of experience that I consider, interaction with a spirit, or so that's something that, and it's not really something that bothers me or troubles me or any, I'm like, what should be will be always. But I'm curious as to why, some people have a lot of those sorts of experiences, and then others, even though they're maybe tapped in a lot of ways, aren't having those sorts of experiences. And I'm wondering if you have insight into that, because you just had mentioned like you help people to easily access that. Yeah.
I mean, and when I say people, I'm talking like people in House of Parliament, like doctors, like, that's why I was just on the TV show Doctors. It's like, I'm taking it to the mainstream. I'm not just keeping it in this very niche area of the spiritual, because those aren't the people who really need it. And the people who need it are the skeptics. I love skeptics. They're the best. I love them. So, okay, well, let's do an experiment with you. Yeah. Can we do that?
Sure.
Sure. Okay, cool.
Love
okay.
It.
So take your hand and put your hand out. Okay. Now I want you to say this, the spirits that are in this room right now.
The spirits that are in this room right now.
Generate the spiritual electrical field into my hand.
Generate the spiritual electrical field into my hand.
So I can feel it.
So I can feel it. I definitely feel something, actually.
What did you feel?
It almost like a heaviness, like I was holding something of weight. Like,
okay, now watch. Keep your hand in that position. Now say out loud, I am not afraid of my power.
I am not afraid of my power.
I am willing to be rebellious against the matrix.
I am willing to be rebellious against the matrix.
Increase the power, spirits.
Increase the power, spirits. Wow, yeah, it's like my going up my whole arm.
Now say it again. I am not afraid of my power.
I am not afraid of my power.
I am willing to see beyond the matrix.
I am willing to see beyond the matrix.
Increase your power.
Increase your power.
And increase the electricity from the spirit world.
And increase the electricity from the spirit world. Yeah, it's just like expanding through my body, where it's like I felt like a wave go across my chest.
That's right.
Wow.
So if
My arm
I
feels heavy.
continue, yeah. So if I continued to do this, we could take over your whole body and reopen like all that spirit electricity, which is what keeps the world separated. So you have like the fairy kingdom, the elf kingdom, like all of the mystical beings. And then you have all the different parallel dimensions from there. And then you have what are called the quantum fields. There's a spiritual electricity that keeps all of the different realms from the perception of human beings separate, because human beings are afraid of the unknown. So this electrical field, it looks like liquid, right? Holds this huge electricity. You can tap into it. And once you bring it into your body, then you can pass into those other worlds. But until you bring it into your body, you cannot pass into those other worlds. And here's a funny thing, and you're going to love this one. You know, when people get scared and they get that electricity that goes up, like they feel like the chills that go up the back of their neck.
Yeah.
That's because that realm is moving into their body. That they're supposed to let themselves go, say, increase. And what happens is as they increase it, they'll be able to see the spirit that's in the room with them, or they'll be able to see into another dimension. And so that what people do is they feel that sensation and they get scared. And they think, oh, what that is them being afraid. What they don't realize is that what that is that they're actually opening up the doorway of perception by pulling in that liquid electricity into their body. That's why they feel the chills and the hairs going up the back of their neck, because that means their synthesis and their body is saying, you can move through this even if you have fear. Keep going. But people shut down. They go, oh yeah, well,
tap out.
Yeah, exactly. And now the cool thing is, because you let that happen, watch. I'm going to show you something else. Just because you let that little amount in your body, that little amount gives you more power. So let me show you something else. So what I want you to say is, Spirit, bring warm energy into my body so I can feel it.
Bring warm energy into my body so I can feel it. Yeah. So instantly, like I of course tapped into how the warmth of my body, and it felt like my hands were kind of cold, but then in the center of my palms, it got really warm.
Yeah, so you're being able to feel it at small levels, but the more we fill your body up with that liquid electricity that allows you to travel into all these other dimensions, you're going to be able to access powers that you have never thought you would ever have. Like, you will be able to literally go into so many different, like when people take ayahuasca or do these plant medicines, what they don't understand is, one, they're taking these medicines and going into this realm that, first of all, they don't have that energy in their body. So they're only opening up a door and looking in, but they can't get in. And that's the thing that I get disappointed with my friends who are in Peru, my friends who are shamans, who I'm like, why aren't you teaching them how to bring that energy from the gate, like from that liquid, from that world into their body, so that when they open the gate and take the medicine, they can go into that world and come up with new innovations, new technologies, like Benjamin Franklin did, and like all of these different people who did by mistake, they ended into that world because they kept seeking and searching. That's why I always say people who, say they're skeptic, they'll say, oh, I'll get these like Wall Street execs. They'll say to me, well, Shaman Durek, the reason why I'm working with you is because, a friend of mine did stuff with you and you helped him and his business has grown and stuff. And so I'm just giving this a chance, but I'm going to let you know I'm a very logical person. And I go, first of all, stop calling yourself logic, because logic doesn't mean you exclude something. True logical person does discovery and goes on the journey. If someone said to me, dragons are real, if I'm a logical person. Shamans are very logical people. We would say, okay, I don't believe in them. However, I'm willing to suspend that and go on the journey. So show me where the dragon is and show me how to make connection with that dragon. And then I'll tell you what I believe in.
Right. Right.
That's the difference. That's a logical person. A person who just says, oh, it doesn't exist. That's an illogical, ignorant person. That's a person who's just afraid of the unknown, and that's it.
Right. I fully agreed. Now, how does it play into this? One of the things that struck me as soon as we connected is how open your heart is, how much love is like exuding from your interactions and the way you communicate and communicated initially. And, as someone who also feels my heart is really open. It's like, and I feel like a lot of my strength comes from that. How much of that plays into, I think I saw even somewhere on your site or somewhere, laughter being the true path to enlightenment, and just noticing from firsthand experience with you how open your heart is and how much love that you're exuding. How much. What do you have to say about that in general, as far as the path for people? To me, I feel like, a lot of people, it's the path to everything. Keeping your heart open is how you become a fountain to sort of let in all of your gifts, all of, your greatest and greatest self can flow through that portal.
Right. So the thing is that the consciousness is held in the fifth element, right? The fifth element is where that's the light source. That's the part that everyone is talking about when they talk about ascension. When I hear a lot of the very, community, or they call it the new age or whatever, the metaphysical community, however you want to interpret it, doesn't really matter because words are unimportant. But it's the thing where people talk about the higher self or all of these different things. First of all, you have to understand that you're not just one spirit, you're four spirits. Now, let me just elaborate on that a little bit.
It's funny because I was going to ask this question about being composite beings. So I'm glad that you actually brought it up because it's one of the things I wanted to address.
Okay, so you have four spirits. That's just you have four containers of power. You have your physical, which deals with the world of matter and substance and atoms that are trapped within light structure, which creates solid forms. You have your emotional, which is the ability to feel. So like right now, you could choose to feel something across the room, and that's your spirit traveling over there to sense it. So like if you ever watch Star Wars, like one of my friends last night was saying, she's like, you're like a Jedi, Durek, because you literally, like when Star Wars, when I'm training my young kids, because I work with all these kids around the world that parents send to me to work with, I teach them how to stretch out their feelings to feel. The more they can feel, the more they can travel. And that builds your sensorium. So the more stronger your sensorium, like right now, I am tapping into a man right now who's in a gym, who's working out. He's on his back. He's moving his legs he's moving side to side with his arms behind his head, his hand behind his head with his arms from left to right. And he's kicking his legs out. He's wearing a blue shirt, black shorts, and he's got these tennis shoes on that have like an orange and red to them with white laces. And I can see that there's a woman in front of him on a treadmill. I see another guy who's lifting weights on the side. He's got a weight band on. He's very big in his shoulders. I can smell the air. It's like the smell of the gym. It's a small gym. I can see that. And I can see the water fountain to the left side. I can see that there's a bathroom on the far wall that goes over. And I'm actually there with him right now.
Why
and he doesn't
him?
even know I'm there with him.
Why him?
I just chose him. I just chose my emotions to go to him.
And is he a rant? When you say you chose him, did you choose him consciously or sort of unconsciously? Like, is there any particular connection or reason that he's the one out of all the potential things you could tap into in this moment? That's, from one perspective, random, right? Is there any method or reason to that?
Yeah. So, the thing works like this. If I use my sensorium, I can do a random, or I could go to someone specifically that I want to support, or like, for instance, like is going through a difficult time. Like, so with him, if I go into his emotions now and I feel like what's going on inside of his life, he's going through a period right now in his life where he's really wanting to be able to move his business and move himself to another level. But he has this insecurity inside of him that he's being really hard on himself. He's like very structured type person. He's being very hard on himself. He has a person in his life, or there's a woman in his life that he wants to move things forward with, but he's scared. So he kind of keeps himself back. I can start setting him energy, or I could just observe him and learn from him. I could just watch his life, depending how long I want to tap in with my sensorium. So sensorium is really important because that's how we survived in the time of like the Mu people were all sensorium. The Anunnakis were sensorium. The Atlanteans were sensorium. That's how we communicated. That's how we maneuvered ourselves. And there was no, how do you say, like now a lot of people put a lot of walls and barriers up. The walls and barriers are illusions. There's no such thing as walls and barriers. People can put them up for themselves because they feel like it's protecting them. But if you're a person who has open sensorium, you can get past any firewall. Like there's nothing that can limit you from going into a person and finding what you want to find. You know, so the thing is, when humans accept sensorium back in their lives, they're going to be transparent because there's no reason for us to hide anything, because we should be completely open because we're all brothers and sisters. And the soul that's in you is the same soul that's in me. So it's talking all the time. So that's why I tell people, you know, being psychic is not being psychic. It's called being love. The more you love someone, the more you see. Right. Yeah. And so you were talking about the heart, because I wanted to finish your question about the heart. It's like loving people. The only way you can truly love someone is without needing them to be anything or putting any expectation on them or wanting them to be into what you feel so you can be comfortable. That's all based on insecurity on the other person's part. To love someone is to love them without seeking anything from them and just love them and give to them without expecting anything from them. And that's true unconditional love. Yeah. Right. And what people are moving, what's happening right now on planet Earth is that people are in the stage of what is called condemnation. They're in the witch hunt. They're looking for the bad wolf who keeps blowing down their home, but they don't realize that they're the ones looking for themselves to find redemption within themselves. That's why Trump and all, you know, like this guy was telling me the other night, he was talking about Trump, and I was like, oh, could we just stop with the Trump thing already? I go, you voted. You voted for him. He's like, no, I didn't.
Energetically, you did.
I'm like, energetically, you did vote for him, and you're still voting for him because you can't stop talking about him. In Japanese culture, when someone is done with someone, they don't even act like they exist anymore. I have my girlfriend who's Japanese. We're no longer together, but we had a friend named Suki, and Suki was like literally, you know, in the marketplace when we were shopping at Farmer's Market, and I went to give Suki a hug and say hi and everything. And I got home and we were putting up groceries, and I said, honey, did you see Suki? And she goes, Suki who? I go, Suki, your friend who's been friends with you for 15 years, Suki. She goes, I don't know who Suki is. Who are you talking about? I go, Suki was in the market, babe. She goes, Durek-san, there is no Suki. What's wrong with you?
Get the message.
And then I realized, oh, she wants Japanese on her. So I started making this joke, like when people, you know, like if you don't want to give power to people, you got to go Japanese. You got to be like, you got to recognize that you are voting for them. So if you stop, so you know how people say, I don't resonate with this. And I hear that a lot in LA too, in New York. They're like, I don't resonate with that. I'm like, actually in the main frame of how shamans think, you do, babe. You do.
You just brought it up.
Because yes, I love you, Brandon. Yes, exactly.
It's so good. It's so good. It really is. There's so many layers to this, understanding how we create our reality and this idea that, you know, where attention goes, energy flows. And it really gets tricky with a lot of this stuff because it's so close. People miss it. It's the same thing with understanding your divinity. You know, this idea of, you know, you are one with the source that creates and animates all things. It's like, it's so close. No. Let's stop talking about it out there, because it's you. And it's kind of feels like the same thing to me when you talk about this. It's like, we're saying we don't resonate, which means, you know, we do resonate, and the Japanese way really makes a lot of sense, I guess, is the best way that I can sum that up, because there's a lot of layers to this stuff, unpacking this stuff. And I feel like we're close, but no cigar a lot of times.
So what is missing from the global population is what we call spiritual maturity, right? And spiritual maturity is the ability to handle truth without reaction and without feeling like something's being done to you in some horrible, horrific, or really bad way, as people will make it seem. So you know, the spirits are like waiting for human beings to get a little bit more mature in their ability to handle truth. Like if someone, you know, I did this class in LA where the whole class came in, all my students. And the first thing I did is I put a piece of paper in front of them and I said, write on the piece of paper, I hate my life because. And they did it, and they started writing down all the reasons, and they were like in shock. They're like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I said, yes, this is what your shadow is holding on to. Your shadow in shamanism is the light of your being that holds all the things that you will not take responsibility for, which means the ability to show up with love for. So all of these things that you just wrote down is things that you won't get embrace in yourself. And these are the reasons why you're having obstacles show up, because obstacles are only created when you're not embracing some truth inside of you. You manifest it as an obstacle to go through this kind of physical experience of it to get to the very place that you could have just got to just by removing the middleman of, I don't know why this is happening and how can this be possible and why, how come this is this? All of that how comes and I don't know whys and all that is the middle person. Get rid of it and just simply say, I smoke because I have cancer, because I choose to have no relationship in my life right now because, and fill the blank in, and you're going to be surprised what comes out of you. The truth.
Wow. That's powerful.
And that's right. And that's what helps people to graduate into what we call spiritual maturity. So spirits can tell them things. No one wants to hear what spirit has to say, because that spirit's saying things to you that people have this agenda that they want to hold on to, or this belief system about themselves they want to hold on to. They don't want to hear what spirit has to say. Right.
So, one of the things that came up for me a moment ago when you're talking, you mentioned some of these ancient civilizations. You mentioned Mu, and it's funny because that's one that's popped up for me late in the last week or so. I've just was contemplating the idea of how names, everything is reflecting what's going on many different levels of our being. Like, you take Bernie Madoff. He made off with everyone's money. I love how names a lot of times were, my last name Beecham, if you break it down, it's like be a chum. Like, I'm like a friend to the world in some sense, right? Or, a lot of times you'll see these names with reflections, and it made me think of it when I was just contemplating this randomly the other day. I thought of my grandmother, who very tapped into her emotions. You're talking about sensorium, and she would cry at the drop of a hat. Her name was Moo. Her nickname was Moo. That's all I ever called her. So I was thinking of that the other day. I'm like, I wonder if there must be some tie-in to this ancient civilization of Mu for her to go by such a random name in this life, right? So I'm curious what your thoughts are on how these messages are hidden on, and you see it a lot of times in words, right? That like I used earlier, someone had just posted in the Positive Heads Facebook group, make your mess your message, or a lot of times you see these codes in just the English language, and I'm sure in others as well. What your thoughts are on that whole idea?
Well, in shamanism, we believe that words have codes and they have frequency. So depending upon the frequency, if it's a frequency that is supporting creation, or is it a frequency that destroys? So every frequency has a destroyer and it has a frequency. And then there's also signature frequencies, like energies that tap you back through lineage, or energies that tap you and connect you to other people or connect you to other civilizations. So it's all connected, really, truly. But the other thing to understand too, because a lot of times what people get caught up in is these like ideas of past lives and, where they lived and what they were a part of. First of all, you have to understand that everything that's happening in your life is operating in your understanding from what you've been told in your conscious mind is operating from a linear perspective. However, the consciousness or the understanding of relativity that moves on beyond your conscious mind is that everything is happening quantumly. That means that
now.
I did one time. It's all happening now. Exactly. So, or what we call now, not in this dimensional now, because this dimensional now is fluid. So
it's like relative truth. Relative
Exactly.
truth. Like it's not happening in this now, but what perspective are you speaking from, really? Is what we have to do.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I say don't look for validation from other people, because you don't know where they are. They could be living in a dimension of hell and they're only reacting based on that dimension. So when they hear what you have to say, they're going to react and give you knowledge based on where they're at. So you always want to share information with someone who's like completely just unconditionally loves you and wants the best for you. And they're going to be giving you information from the stream of love, consciousness, and data. So let's going forward. Like what I was saying was about, past lives. People talk about past lives, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. And what they don't understand is that that, I was giving this course once about helping people understand their shamanic journeys that they've had, which I basically call shamanic journeys, like all of your passages, all the times you got on a canoe in a different body of different stream of consciousness, to me is a shamanic journey. And so one woman said she was Cleopatra, and two of the girls in the class stood up and said, I was Cleopatra too. How could you be Cleopatra?
Right.
And I said, well, actually, if you want to get into the core of it, you both, and all three of you were Cleopatra.
Right.
All of you. And that's why, what I tell people is that your vessel is not held by one spirit. Like right now, I have beings right now who are in other dimensions and galaxies that I'm seeing in my room right now, who are tapping into this conversation of ours right now, and as a training to learn more about human nature. So they're in school right now in their galaxy, tuning into us and learning about this interaction. Now,
cool.
There's no, so these things show up. So sometimes I'll be in the room and I'll see like 20 beings come in, and they're all just standing there glowing. And I'm like, oh, are you here to just observe me, being in this moment or being in that moment? And they're just like, there, and I call them the watchers. But there really is that there are other beings from other galaxies who have technology to be able to bring them here to tap in, to learn about human conditioning. Because let's face it, this is a type 2 planet. A type 2 planet is basically, it means that it has two polar opposites. That means duality. It's held in a dualistic field, held by the consciousness of those who continue to keep it dualistic. They're reacting and reacting and reacting to each polar opposite with the same amount of energy that keeps those polar opposites intact. Now, the consciousness of meaning, which is when we go to when we put astronauts into outer space, no astronaut is going to ever come across an ET or an alien or see a spaceship, because their perception is held within the field of their awareness that is collectively created on Earth. So even though there's a spaceship sitting right next to them, they won't see it. And the reason why is because collectively they're in a field of energy, and that energy doesn't allow them to see the other energy that exists because their mind doesn't believe in it. So their mind takes away that energy and they don't see it. That's what perception is. That's why I love helping people expand their perception, because they're like, what do you mean? You mean my partner, my soulmate, my twin flame was here the whole time, and it was just because I wasn't open to shift my perception, which is what I loved about what you said earlier in this share that we're sharing together. So the interesting thing is that the reptilians, these wonderful beings, these wonderful reptilian colony of ETs, have helped us to contain our planet into what we call like a sphere of collective energy that maintains itself until we're ready to evolve beyond it. So they don't allow, it's not like they don't allow for the purpose of hurting. It's like David Icke would say, oh, these beings they're controlling people, they're doing that. Yeah, well, it's very easy for a human being on Earth to always associate anything that goes against what they think is comfortable as being evil or bad. I mean, we're always classifying duality between the good and the bad. Whereas in shamanism, we know that the reptilians are serving us, giving us an opportunity to correct our imbalances that we create as a creator, as a quantum creator. We get the ability to see how we're magnifying our creation through our powers. In an environment like a playground that Earth has signed up to be a part of, and the elemental spirits have shared their energy to create our organs and our body. So we indigenate with the animal species to be able to breathe oxygen and carry out this experience, this experiment. So for someone like David Icke, who sees them as these evil creatures who've come to control us and build this whole system of control and matrix and all that, they're not the ones building the matrix. The reptilians are there to hold the system so that we can learn from resistance and expansion. So they're there to help us to be able to learn through duality to where we don't need duality anymore. So it's really amazing how like the Palladians and the Arcturians and the Oberian spirits who created the Keshic records and all of these different beings are here to assist us to learn how to become quantum But by creating certain levels of resistance and having us interface with that resistance, showing us the expansion of what is possible from zero perspective to this infinite perspective, or what we say the pi, the infinite aspect of divinity. And that's the reason why the reptilians and all the other beings have started generating code frequencies to us, like 1111, 333, 444, 666, because all of these code frequencies bypass any kind of like religion or like belief systems or like anything. Everyone sees it. And that's opening up a reservoir for them to tap into our system and start downloading knowledge and information in us while we access that code. Just by seeing it and being aware of it, they're able to download new information for us so that we can start taking apart these constructs that we've created to feel safe, and realize that safety is held in the idea of fear, or it's just held in the idea of duality. And when we get out of that, we realize it's not about being safe. It's about recognizing ourselves as these powerful creators and then deciding, are we going to create or destroy? Really simple.
Wow. Yeah, that's a powerful perception and share. Very, very insightful. So one of the things that I always love to get on the show is a story of synchronicity, serendipity, positive paranormal story, that kind of thing. I would imagine you have like books of them, and you kind of shared one with your telling about your friends who passed, and maybe we could get one on the other end of the spectrum, something that's a little that's magical in a good way, that just even dig into the archives, into the Shaman Durek Akashic records. What is a good story that you'd like to share?
Good story. Let me think of synchronicity. There's so many synchronicities that take place, but let's take a look at one of those. It could just be like a positive paranormal kind of happening that is,
sort of thing. Whatever you feel.
Okay, so I had this friend of mine. Mm-hmm. I said, do I want to tell that one? Let me think. So I have so many stories I want to think about.
If you need to think a few minutes, we can edit it out too, the time. Because I know I want the best story. I know there's some good ones lurking in there.
So tell me what kind of story you're looking for, and I can pull through my Rolodex and see which is more
just so. Something that's super like wow and inspiring and magical.
In shamanism, we have this thing called finding your lost keys. And, keys are so important in shamanism because a lot of times what people don't realize is that the energies that take place on the earth have doorways. And every doorway, you may not see them, but they're all around you. And there's doorways that lead to love. There's doorways that lead to success. There's all kinds of doorways. And to access those doorways, you have to have the right key or the right combination. And so I had this woman who came to me and was like, I want to be an anthropologist. And I heard about you from my friend. And, I just feel like I've sent out so many resumes and I don't know why I haven't gotten the chance to get any of them answered. And it seems like it's just been really hard to find work. And I looked at her and I said, look, I'm going to talk to the spirits and find out, what is the issue that is going on. And the spirit said, she's missing a key. Tell her to go take singing lessons. And so I said, so you need to go take singing lessons, sweetheart. Wow. And she said, singing lessons? Why would I take singing lessons? What does that have anything to do with me being an anthropologist? I said, did you sing before? She said, yes, when I was a kid, but my mom used to always make fun of me. So I stopped. Mm-hmm. I said, well, let me explain something to you. I said, in shamanism, we have these things called keys. And one of the keys is that if you don't find the lost key, there's certain things in your future, or what you call your future, doors can't open. So I said, when your mom made fun of you, she took away your courage, and your courage was taken, and that key is waiting for you. So you need to go back and get it. So go take those singing lessons and we'll talk. So she went and took the singing lessons and was like about 6 months out. From there, she called me up crying on the phone and she said, Shaman Durek. I said, what's going on? And she's like, I hit a note in my singing and I started crying. on the top of my lungs. I was screaming and crying. I fell to the floor, and the music teacher was like asking me if I needed water and whatever. And I was putting myself back together. And literally, I felt my courage come back into my body.
Wow.
And I said, uh-huh. And she's like, and I can't thank you enough. Like, I would have had no, at first when you told me to sing, I thought, okay, I know, I heard that you're this great shaman, but I really thought for a second, okay, this guy's crazy. But then, I get it now. And within like a week, she started getting all of these responses from people to do what she does. And now she's doing her anthropology. And I've had similar situations that happen with other people, is that going back and finding keys. I had this one situation with this girl who I said to her, every time a guy comes to you, the spirits say that you keep looking at them as like, creeps because they're being attracted to your beauty and you think all they want to do is get in your pants. I said, let's change the dialogue to they're looking at your beauty as a signature to get into synchronicity with you for something that's greater than what you're actually looking at. So the next time a guy starts staring at you, smile and give an acknowledgement to that person's stare. And she's like, okay. She's like, okay, that's true. Because I always say that me and my girlfriends are always like, oh, that guy's a douchebag or whatever. And I was like, well, don't do that. Just like get into a different space. And so she was at a cafe with her girlfriend and in Hollywood. And this guy was staring at her and she remembered what I said. And so she started smiling back. The guy came over to the table to introduce himself. And her girlfriend got very, like upset with the guy, like, what, like, come on, like, what, seriously, we're at lunch. Like, what are you doing? Like, like if we wanted to flirt with you, we would. And the guy's like, he's like, I'm not over here to do that, And so the girl was like, just let him speak. And so he's talking. He goes, look, I just was looking at you and I was staring at you, admiring your beauty. And he's like, and, I'm working on this new script for this TV show called Kyle XY. And I'm really looking for, a girl to play the sister of the main guy. And I thought, it would be nice to have you in that role because you have the look of what I'm looking for that role. And she ended up becoming the star of Kyle XY because she opened that up. And so my story of synchronicity is like, don't look at the world with the perception that you have to put up walls and barriers. Just be open to everything with love. And if you're open with everything with love, you're going to realize that everything in life, right, is a pouring into. Everything that someone has in life was because someone poured into their vessel. So if you look at everything with an openness of love, you're saying to the universe, you're saying to life, you're saying to all people, it's okay if you want to pour into me. And that literally makes it so people can take you on a journey. That's why I love the book, The Alchemist, because it's such a brilliant book because it's all about that. It's about trusting the journey. And that in shamanism, we'd say, take your canoe and get in the canoe on the river and get rid of your oars and throw them away and trust that the river is going to take you exactly where you need to be.
You know what's so great about that is I just finished listening to the first full audiobook I've listened to in years, or actually that's the first full audiobook I've listened to. I usually read, a physical book, and it's The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. And it is that. It is all that. I mean, this guy he just made the pact that he's with himself. He's going to stop listening to his own preferences and surrender to the flow of life, what it's bringing to him and showing that the direction he's supposed to go. Like the singing lessons, he was taken down roads like, why am I doing this? Next thing you know, here's a guy, all he wanted to do with his preference was to meditate in the woods from a very young age. But he stopped listening to these preferences and allowed life to unfold in this way. And he agreed to surrender to everything that was obvious. And he ended up with like $1 billion company and just doing all these magical things and now touching lots of people's lives through that book and another book, The Untethered Soul, which is brilliant. And so that's been resonating with me very strongly in the last, I just finished listening to it 2 days ago, actually. So I highly recommend it, along with The Alchemist, which is incredible as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's beautiful. And that's exactly right. The story of the journey of yourself without the need to question. I always say this, and this is like what I say, and I really want to just leave this with a lot of your listeners. is that the unknown is not to be analyzed. The unknown is meant to be journeyed. It's to be discovered, embraced. It's not to be analyzed. If you try to analyze the unknown pushes you out.
Yeah.
To get into the unknown, you have to go on the journey.
Yep.
That's it.
Love it. Love it. Wow. This has been so epic. You are so amazing. I am so grateful that you exist and have shared here today. What is the best way for people to connect who want to follow? Obviously, your podcast. You've got some other things coming out as well. A couple shows, correct?
Yeah, so I have, I'm going to be on The Doctors, which is coming out soon. And I'm also, Discovery just did a documentary of, it's called California Innovators, and it's about the people in California who are innovating the world. And so it's a new thing that will be coming out in December. And it's about my powers and the things that I'm doing in the world as a shaman in the countries that I'm going to that are in war and conflict, and how I'm actually out there on the front lines and helping people to come back into their power and put the power back in their hands. So that comes out in December. I have some other really big projects coming up, but I can't really talk about it. One of them is involving Netflix, and that's coming out a little bit later.
Exciting.
I have a book that comes out next year. It's very exciting. And you can also, you can check me out at Shaman Durek on Instagram, because what I do on Instagram is when I do my Instagram lives, I really believe that I'm not better. This is not about a hierarchy. So I'm not really into the guru consciousness behavior. I'm more into like collective tribe. We all have something powerful to share, right?
All pieces of the puzzle.
And it's like, I don't want to be the dictator talking to people. So what I do on Instagram is, on my Instagram lives, is I'll randomly select people who are watching, and I'll bring them on to share their knowledge and wisdom with the tribe. And it's a great way for people, one, to get followed. It's a great way for people to get their message out. And it just creates a very strong collective in the tribal, way. And so
it's exactly what we do with our Friday episodes, letting the listeners take over the show. It's wonderful. I love that you do that.
It's so wonderful. And I love that you do that as well. And then if you want to train with me or learn about workshops that I'm doing so you can learn about your powers, you can just go to my website, sign up on my newsletter, and, and get on board the lit train and get lit and start living your life in this really dynamic, powerful way, because you are a powerful being and you are a leader, and you're here to lead your message to all of us, so we can all lead the message of love forward, so we can build a beautiful, beautiful new dimensional world. It's already created, but we just need to now be able to see it on a constant basis and live in it.
Yes.
Move into the new house. Just sitting there waiting for us.
Yeah, as you referenced Jesus's teachings, as someone who, I'm the same way. I love a lot of what he taught, and I think it was misconstrued and whatever, but the core of his teachings, he said, in my house are many mansions I have prepared, my Father has prepared, and that's instantly what comes to mind when you say that. We're literally stepping into this new house together, and it is as a tribe, and absolutely couldn't agree more. And just to throw out the podcast name again to everyone, it's Ancient Wisdom Today. You can definitely catch Shaman there. And I do have one last question to leave you with, and that question is this: in 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Shaman Durek?
The meaning of life is to evacuate our brothers and sisters from the void of darkness that was created by the misperception of their thinking that was created in God consciousness, and to evacuate them and bring them home to the light. And so that is why we're here. We're here for evacuation.
And just to add one thing that just popped up for me, for any of you listening to this and thinking, oh my gosh, this person is so incredible. You are tuning into this broadcast out of so many things vying for your attention out there, because you are such a close vibrational match to this incredible soul, Shaman Durek. And everything that you're hearing and feeling is a reflection of you, and it is all within you as well. And thank you for being Shaman Durek. You are amazing. And I look forward to crossing paths in 3D sooner than later.
I love you so, so much. And I definitely am looking forward to giving you a big, big soul hug. And anybody also who sees me out in the public, or if you ever hear, so, oh, that's Shaman Durek standing there, just walk up to me and give me a hug, because that's what it's about. I want to know you. I want to embrace you. And exactly what you said, Brandon, we are each other. And that is so beautiful. So if you are, tuning in with all the Maya that we are constantly evolving ourselves out of, we are all each other, and none of us are here to play a greater than, less than. It is we are equal. We heart to heart, hand to hand, feet to feet, and mind to mind, and we're walking into the darkness to liberate our brothers and sisters and bring them home.
Yes, everywhere you go, you're there waiting for yourself, and I cannot wait to. I look forward to the continued journey together. Until next time, journey well, my friend.
Journey well. I love you.
Also, before we sign off, I wanted to remind you to download the Golden Key audio or ebook as my free gift to you at goldenkey.gift using the Golden Key code POSITIVEHEAD. And please, if you enjoy my gift, leave a positive review on Amazon so others can find the book and unlock their lives with the help of the Golden Key as well.